Monday. Craig Martelle here, coming to you live from the subarctic. It is light out. It was light at 1 a.m., 1:30. So we're entering that phase of our existence where it's just light all the time. So anyway, hey, today we have Brian Meeks on the show, Amazon ads, as well as mastering your Amazon descriptions. Where are you coming to us from, Brian?
Coming to you live from Martelle, Iowa, population 252, where it's just as exciting as it sounds.
That's right. I do have a town named after me, spelled exactly the same. And I know people and like people who live there. I actually know a few people who live there.
Oh, do you? Who else do you know?
Like the person who runs the library, her and her husband, they come down to Icon every year.
Absolutely.
For the years I was down there. Yeah.
It's a great town. One of the nice things about living in a town like Martelle, Iowa, is comparative to other places. I've lived in the DC area, obviously most recently Las Vegas Strip. In Martelle, Iowa, in the spring and summer, when there isn't a worldwide pandemic, if you go outside and you see neighbors sitting in lawn chairs, you can go over and they'll bring you a lawn chair. And usually within 45 minutes, somebody brings you pie.
Oh, yes, there's always pie.
There's always pie.
Welcome to
Iowa. Don't get that in Las Vegas. I've never had free pie.
Neighborly pie.
Neighborly pie. Exactly. It's wonderful. And the thing that's really amazing about this town in particular is my family has had a farm outside of town that we homesteaded about 150 years ago.
Okay.
And I live in the house. Well, we still own a house in town. We still have the original 40 acres out of town, but the folks in town, they of course knew my grandfather, and Grandpa to me was a guy who was kind of quiet. I don't think he knew how to be around kids so much. And I found out only after his passing, living here, that Grandpa was a storyteller. He liked nothing more than to sit around and talk about the great snowstorm of 1919. And so I get to hear all these stories retold as my grandfather had told them. And I think that's where I maybe get my storytelling from.
That's very Iowegian. Telling stories,
yes, it is.
and sitting around talking. My dad does it constantly, so I bought him a voice recorder. I was like, please. He doesn't use it, so he just tells the stories and they go away, and everybody will just have to remember. But also, I'm reminded of one of the commandments, and that part of Iowa is very Christian and religious. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's pie. So let's talk about Blurb.
It's true, and I try not to, but boy. She makes good pie next door.
So much coveting.
So much coveting.
Let's talk about Blurbs.
Absolutely.
On Amazon, you get a certain part of visual real estate in order to make your pitch. And it's like when you're pitching somebody, let me kill this here.
What are you killing there?
Facebook, because it's a bandwidth suck, and I have a limited amount here that I get to use. You have a limited amount of real estate in which to make your pitch. It's like an elevator pitch. If you're just talking to somebody, you have two floors of rise in order to sell them on you. Sometimes it's just saying hi, being relatable. Sometimes it's, hey, you're an author. What do you write?
Exactly.
Where do you get your ideas? I mean, the things that you sell them on, hey, the storytelling, the things like that, and you only have 50 words. You only have X number of characters. So this is the space within which you make the sale. It's not you tell them about the book. Oh, hey, this book is about bullshit. Sell them on why this book sells. So talk to us about that real estate.
Yeah, one of the things that people don't understand is that we live in an age of incredibly fractured attention spans. Most people that are listening, most authors are on Facebook. They know that if you see a post from one of your friends or in one of the author groups that we all belong to, and it's 15 lines in a single block of text, you hit like and move on. Now, the ironic thing about selling books is A person has just clicked on an ad or they've done a search. They're looking for guinea pig shifter romance. And so they've landed on your book, despite the fact that they are there to purchase something where they're going to go off in their little reading nook and spend 2 hours uninterrupted enjoying the fruits of your labor. They cannot be bothered to read a burdensome description. And so you talk about real estate. There's actually two properties. You've got above the fold, which is the point at which it says read more, and that's only 5 lines. One might think you want to pack as much as you can into those lines. I'm the exact opposite. I believe you want to use as few words as possible, because the only goal of those lines, you're not trying to sell the book in those lines. You're trying to sell the idea that they will click read more. If you can get them to do that, you're halfway home. After they click read more, you don't want them to see a big, massive Homer-esque tome giving a synopsis of your book, because they just won't read it. It's just like the long Facebook post in a single block of text. If you have too many words, they won't read it. And this isn't theory. I've studied this data for 3 years now. I know that a typical synopsis type description converts at 1 in 30 on a $4.99 book. I know that proper copywriting converts at 1 in 8 to 1 in 10. And I have mountains of data on this. And so you're trying initially above the fold to get them to click read more. So you need to change your mindset about what you put in those spaces. And
I'm a big fan of making the sale in that above read more. And actually, if you click read more on my blurbs, you're only going to find about 3 or 4 more lines, because I'm trying to make that sale in the read more. I don't completely fill it. I may have short lines, but they're high impact, they're copy, and they don't tell anything about the book. They talk about the emotions you're going to feel when you read the book. So this is how I shape my blurbs.
I think you brought up an interesting point. The common misconception among authors writing their own blurbs is that they're using the description to tell people what's in the book. No, you don't want to tell them what's in the book. You want to hint at what might be in the book. Now, it's a little different when you're writing nonfiction. For a nonfiction book, obviously a person is there to address an issue. They're trying to lose weight. They're trying to become more organized. They want to learn how to make lists, whatever that is. So you still need a hook, and you may need some bullet points where you talk about some of the highlights of the book, but you don't want 15 of them. And so the idea is just get them intrigued. Can I tell a story about my copywriting miracle? I had, back in February of last year, after I released Mastering Amazon Descriptions, about 3 weeks after, a woman in my group that I'd set up for the book, about 10 o'clock at night, she put up a post. And I happened to be on the computer, because where else would I be? And she said, I bought Brian's book. I was reading along, and all of a sudden I got to a chapter and I couldn't go any further. And she had done it all in proper copywriting. She had used the blank lines. She had an opening hook. And she said, I need a link to the book in chapter 43. Well, I don't, it never occurred to me to put links to my examples in the book, because I didn't figure any of the people reading it wanted to buy the books. They wanted to learn how to do the copywriting. So I went and looked it up, and I got her the link and I sent it to her. And she said, thank you. And then she wrote back a few minutes later. She said, I want you to understand, I'm 50 years old. I've never owned a cookbook. I've never considered buying a cookbook, but your copy in that chapter made me need to get the cookbook on keto recipes. And so I succeeded in selling a book to somebody who wasn't in the market for a book because of the power of the copy. So it absolutely matters. Now, do you go through, and I know you're very busy, so you have a lot more on your plate than I do, but do you go through and calculate out your conversion rate?
Oh, absolutely. And I am anywhere from 1 to 10 to 1 to 30. On the 1 to 30s, I will look at again. I always start with the cover. Is the cover hooking? And I had to change covers because the cover wasn't hooking people. It wasn't getting them over initially, and people would click, but then they'd see the cut. It'd be like, okay, and then I tweak the blurb. So if it's 1 to 10, I don't mess with it at all. I move on. I have so many titles. I have over 100 titles, so I don't have
like I said, your plate is more full than mine, and you bring up something that's interesting. And I tell people this, that when you decide to start studying copywriting and you begin working on your descriptions, I originally went from 1 in 30 to 1 in 12. And my assumption, because I'm full of hubris, is that, well, 1 in 12, that's clearly as good as one can get. You can't improve upon that because this was my first attempt. And obviously I'm going to get it perfect on the first try. So that was my hubris. And I went back and calculated, had I learned copywriting just 12 months earlier, applied that methodology to all my books, and during that 12 months had the exact same number of clicks because I keep all my data, I would have made $60,000 more because I went from 1 in 30 to 1 in 12. Well, I let those sit there for a while. And during that time, I wrote the AMS ads book. I helped a lot of people with their descriptions. And what I noticed is the more that I did it, the better I became. I started to get ideas for ways to write better hooks, add more intrigue. And so I went back and redid my descriptions again. And now I'm typically, my best ones are at 1 to 8. And so does that mean that I can't get down to 1 in 7.5? No, because I write 3 to 5 descriptions a day. And so you get better at it. And I always tell people, if you have an opportunity to help another author who is struggling with their description, take it, because it's the repetition of working on other people's stuff, which is vastly easier than writing a description on your own book. Because you're carrying all that weight of knowing your story. Yes. If all you know is their original description and maybe looking at a little bit of reviews, you can pick out 2 or 3 very interesting hooks and use that to craft a better description than what they had. And it will make you better at doing yours. Eventually, you get to a point where it's easy across the board, but I had probably written 200 descriptions before I felt that way. So it takes a while. Yeah. Yeah. And getting that external help on occasion. I ask for help on occasion. I've asked you for some help on blurbs, and always trying to do better. My best blurb ever converted at 1 to 4 for a month before it fell out of favor. And then we tweaked it, and I'm good. I'm good at 1 to 10 is great. 1 to 30, you need to change things. Just simple as that. And also, I'll ask some questions here, and I'll pop in and out as I change my my Wi-Fi's, because I'm trying to find the one. I have one that is in essence free, and then I have another that costs me about $30 a show. So I'm going to keep jumping back and forth to the one that's free. But I won't be as clear as I am now. And if I drop out, don't worry about it. You're still live, so I can keep talking. Just keep rolling. But just so you know, if you drop out, the chances that I will steer off into a guinea pig related story are probably pretty good. So that's the risk you take. I fear the pie coveting, man. I fear the pie coveting. Well, you mentioned something that I think is interesting. And one of you're right. If you see a 1 in 30 description, change it. Well, something I learned while I was doing my research, and I don't think a lot of other description writers maybe talk about this, or any of them, because honestly, most people have better things to do than mine data. I did a study using Facebook and attempting to give away a book for free. So it was the first book in my space opera. I wanted to gather more data than is given when you run a Facebook ad. So what I did is I created 8 identical landing pages. I wanted each page to represent a gender and age range. So I had an 18 to 29-year-old female landing page, 30 through 39, so forth for male and female. And then I ran an ad and I had identical sort of generic copy across all 8.
Mhm.
In order to give away a copy of the book for free and gather their email address, which was the goal, I needed 9 clicks. Okay. I did that, got my data. Then I did the same test where I, on the landing page, had 8 identical bits of copy that were proper copywriting. It wasn't a synopsis of the book. I was trying in the initial one to sort of write the description in the way that everybody does it. And that got me down to 1 in 7. And it didn't matter, male or female, 1 in 7. The next question I had was, does gender matter? So on the female landing page, the copy went something along the lines of Christian Nash is a pilot, a general bad guy, a Marine, and he thinks he's the hero. Sasha thinks it's adorable. It's her job to keep him alive. Okay. That was the female centric one. And then on the male one, it was all, he's a Marine, very, very Tim Allen, no mention of Sasha, very manly. The conversion rate, it took me only 3 clicks to get a female reader to take a free copy. So I went from 1 in 9 to 1 in 7 down to 1 in 3. On the male side, it went down to 1 in 3.5. But I threw a curveball in there. On one of the male landing pages, I took the female Sasha copy and I used that because I wanted to see how this funnier copy with the bit about Sasha keeping him alive would play to the male readership. That page received 62 clicks. Now, Craig Martelle, I want you to guess, out of 62 clicks, how many free copies did I give away?
8.
0. Not a single guy would take a free copy of a book where the woman was a better badass than the guy. Now, 62 is not statistically significant, but it is interesting. And so when I write descriptions for clients, one of the things that I ask them is, do you know the distribution by gender? If it's a romance author, they will sometimes skew in the 90% female.
Yeah.
If it's military science fiction, I wrote some 3 days ago for an ex-Marine sniper. And
Ooh, never an ex-Marine. Never an ex-Marine. Former Marine.
Okay. I appreciate that. I like to get the lingo right. A former Marine sniper who writes military, in the military science fiction genre. And he knew that his readership was 80% male. And so the difference in the way I would approach the 2 descriptions is both books might have a strong male and a strong female protagonist in the book. But the one that I bring up first is usually of the same gender as the distribution of the audience. It's a small thing, but every one of those little details, whether it's the way I do the hooks, factoring in gender or not, if it's evenly distributed, all leads to getting slightly better conversion rates. And that's how it's good copywriting gets you to 1 in 12, 1 in 10 in there. But if you want to keep working and lowering it, you have to try to figure out things that are slightly better. And I continually do this. Like I said, I write 3 to 5 descriptions a day, and I'm always looking for something else that's interesting.
Yeah. The Joseph Alexander, 7-figure nonfiction author, he popped up and he said, in nonfiction, blurbs, you need to get those keywords in there as well. So is stacking your copywriting with certain keywords on top of the 7 keyword blocks that you get within your product description is important. You want to hit the trigger words. And one thing you can do is if you have a substantial number of reviews, you can look at those reviews, and Amazon now gives you a cool thing where they show you, hey, here's the
they do
words.
The word cloud. They give you the word cloud of those key things, and that's a great resource. Yeah.
So yes, be aware of what keywords are kind of triggers for your trope. You can check Publisher Rocket, or just search those on Amazon yourself. Go to ebooks and search those keywords, or search the phraseology within your blurb and see what pops up. And hopefully it's books that are similar to yours in like a genre where if you clicked it, like, yes, I like that, they should like mine, or they should be more open to reading mine.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
A book I'm writing for that I'll release this fall, a thriller, added to the list, is I looked at a longer title and I searched it and I'm like, this is crap. It's just not coming up with anything. And then I researched who are the top selling thriller authors and what are they coming up with. I mean, how hard is that? And I came up with, you need a single name. Let's look at Mark Dawson's. His #1 book sold 1 million copies, The Cleaner.
There you go.
Okay. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So The Operator, go back to Amazon, search The Operator, thinking of like a special forces type operator. And it comes up with a lot of nonfiction, a couple fiction where the book titles, there's no series called The Operator. So now it's not trademarked or copyrighted as a series title. And so I'm like, cool, we'll call it that, and published, hey, we're doing this. So, and now we have a record. Now we have a record that I'm going to call this one book and not the series. The series name is very clean and untouched because it's the guy's name. But looking at that, so use Amazon as a resource. You don't need third-party products, even though, yes, I use Publisher Rocket as well, rather extensively. Still, go to Amazon and take your phrases, copy, paste. It takes, well, if you have my internet, it takes minutes. if you have like normal human internet, it takes a few seconds. You pop it in there, see what the first page, because where do you hide a dead body? The second page of Google results.
There you go.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So just hang on. We're starting to get questions, and now that Brian is here, he gets it. He liked the Brian Cohen episode where Brian did live checks on the hook. Uh-huh. So if you want to get a quick review, copy into the comments above the fold. Just go to your Amazon description if you have one. If you actually have the book published, copy everything above the fold right to the read more. Paste it in as a comment and we'll see it. And actually add something in all caps, like blurb in all caps, and I'll pop it up on the screen. Brian will take a look at it, give you his, and this is most important. What's your first impression? First, you don't get a second chance to make a good first impression, so make it good.
Absolutely. I just saw how I can see the comments, I think.
Yeah, and I put them on the screen. I've got them on the main screen here.
Okay, very good. Oh, if you have an idea of what book about, even if it's not plotted, you think it is easier to write your description before you write the book. I haven't tried doing that, admittedly. It's a clever idea. But again, most authors, because books are like, they're precious. They're like children. They've come up with a clever twist. They've come up with something that maybe hasn't been tried in the genre that they think is going to be popular. They're dying to tell everyone all the spoilers and ruin the book. And that's what you want to avoid. So if you can write a vague, intriguing, you won't believe what happens to Joe because this isn't his first rodeo or something. I don't know. But if you can do that, then do it. And that's fine. You ask about doing something before you write it. I do this with covers. So if I'm writing in a new genre that I haven't written before, I will, especially science fiction, there's a place, DeviantArt, where you can go, and I've found really great pieces of art and then emailed the artists and said, listen, I'm working on this series. How much would you charge to let me use your art as my royalty-free cover? And usually they're not familiar with royalty-free or what it means. I explain it's still your copyright material. You're just saying that I can put it on my book and use it in my promotions. And they give me a number. And usually it's less than the number I have in my mind. But the point of that exercise is I get this amazing piece of art for my book cover. And then I write a scene where I describe what's in the art. So as opposed to writing a brilliant scene and then trying to convey what's in your mind to an artist, I go the other route. So I've done that with covers. It would make sense. You could do it with a description.
Yeah. I actually take part of my cover description and start with that, like the operator. We're still working on the outline for this book. I have the first chapter all set up, but working on the outline and I have already started the blurb. Because one thing I do is I set up a new folder for a new book as a subfolder to a series. And in that folder, I'll have the draft copy, which is a template that I use for all my books. I publish using the exact same Word document once I found something that worked and then it carries over my my front matter and back matter, and I just update it. And then I also have my blurb, my keywords, my title, my series name, author names exactly as they need to appear, and those things, all the metadata, and then the blurbs. So that's where I can hold all of my blurbs over time, and as well as the HTML coding for whatever the current blurb is. I'll code that up and have that good to go. We do have a question on the screen.
Well, can I address HTML coding really quickly? Because I have changed my position 180 degrees on the HTML. I used to use H2 and H3. I liked the bold. I have since gone to no HTML. Now I use a lot of blank lines, but what I'd never considered before a couple months ago is that if you use H2 and H3, your third line, now understand that all the descriptions I write for myself, for my clients, they have a short line, a blank line, a short line, a third blank line, and then it says read more. If the first line is H2, because it thickens up the font, you now get one line, blank line, one line, blank line, and then it will either cut through half the line, which aesthetically looks horrible, or it will put your third hook line on the next page, which is defeating the purpose. And so if you've got that third line, what will Alex do? Question mark. Well, that question mark is why they're going to hit the read more. And if it shows up on the next line, and I will see this with clients all the time where they will mess with the HTML and it then screws up their hook. Or you see people, if you look at the read more and the last line before the read more is not the end of a sentence with a question mark or a period, it's just the middle of a line, because it's part of a larger paragraph, you're hurting yourself. That's one of those little details. And so I just wanted to bring up the HTML because people don't think about that. And then the other thing is, don't use Author Central to change your description.
Well, if you're trying something, I would use Author Central. If you're running through a bunch of changes over a short period of time, doing some testing on your own, I would use Author Central, but you got to copy in what you do just to find the one that resonates that you then upload to KDP, the bookshelf, before you actually make any other changes. Because Author Central can be very powerful.
Well, it's true. It can be. People just don't understand that Author Central isn't permanent.
That's right.
If you put in the description that you've just spent a lot of money to have somebody write into Author Central, and then 7 weeks later, somebody points out that you spelled the TEH. So you fix it, you upload your new file. You won't notice that your old horrible description is now back to there. And that's my concern, is people aren't aware that it's temporary. The other thing I would say is, if you are doing testing to see how, like, maybe you've written 3 descriptions, you want to see which one works best. Well, it's not as much about the length of time that you keep it up there. It's about the quantity of paid clicks that you have. Until you've got 1,000 clicks to know your conversion rate is statistically significant, putting it up for 2 days. And I see this all the time. People will say, hey, I did something that you suggested and it didn't work. And then I'll say, can I look at your data? And they'll say, sure, I changed the price on Thursday, and see how on Thursday I had 2 sales, but on Wednesday I had 4. And I say, well, that's not really how it works, because what about the Tuesday before that and the Monday before that where you had 0? And so they don't understand variance. And so I just caution people about doing testing and not getting enough data to draw a real conclusion. I'm a little bit of a data Nazi, and I apologize for that. And so anyway,
fast. We got to get. We only have 25 minutes, and we're going to get into blurbs here, and I'll give you 1 minute on each blurb. But get this question first, and this is you've already answered most of this, I think.
Yes. Can I ask where you are getting these stats from? AMS, clicks versus conversions, I guess. Yes. The conversions. I like to look at a period of time, say 30 days, longer is better, maybe 60. Take the number of sales that you get, take the number of page reads that you get, should you be in KU. Divide that page reads by your KENPC number to convert it to units. Always round up, because you can't have half of a human downloading a book. And then you have your total number of conversions, and you have your total number of clicks, and you can find out that you had 100 new readers between both sales and KU, and you had 1,000 clicks. That's a 1 in 10 conversion rate. So I hope that answers the question for Joseph.
And now the clicks. This is where having clean data helps, in that you have one ad funneling people in. Otherwise, you're getting clicks a number of places. You get your clicks from Amazon ads, the dashboard.
Oh, yeah.
Because also what's not accounted for there is the KU borrows. So you get the click that says, hey, they clicked this ad, but if they got there a different way, that click won't register.
That's absolutely true. And something that you need to understand is that for the vast majority of authors, the masses, not the Craig Martelles of the world or the Mark Dawsons, the people who do get a fair amount of organic traffic, but for the masses, there aren't that many organic sales.
Yeah.
There isn't that much search. You're not landing on page 1, like you made the observation about Google being death, page 2. Yeah. So if you're a person who is making $300 to $500 a month on your sales, you can assume that almost all of them came from your paid clicks. Now, you talked about clean data. If you're running AMS ads and you're running Facebook ads, well, to figure it out, you may have different conversion rate from Facebook clicks versus AMS clicks because of some of the way the targeting goes. That could be an entire show, so I won't go down that path. But yes, the cleaner your data, the better. If you're a person, if somebody's listening is one of those 7-figure authors and they want to do it, well, then you probably have to calculate a baseline. That's a little more complex analysis. And you know what? If you're one of those people, send me a Facebook message and I'll help you.
We are now into the blurbs.
Okay.
You have 1 minute.
Okay. The amazing Conroy hypothesizes people. Some of those people are hypnotizes. Oh, okay. Some of those people are aliens. Some of those aliens have telepathic powers. That's where things start to go wrong. That's a lot of words. And now I can't see how you have that formatted on the page, but just The amazing Conroy hypnotizes people. Some of those people are aliens. You're listing plot points. Some of those aliens have telepathic powers. That's where things start to go wrong. I would say Conroy has been hypnotizing people, ... And then the next line, ... for his entire career. What he doesn't know might get him killed, ? And then you can maybe work in aliens either. But the thing about misusing ellipses is that nobody is going to stop reading after 4 words and a ... We just don't have the willpower. We're too curious a species. And so we will go to the next line. And you're not supposed to have an additional ellipses there, but I don't care. I want to sell the book. And
It's
so
copy.
You have that next bit. And then when you say something like, what Conroy doesn't, what Conroy doesn't know might get him killed. Okay. Well, then it begs the question, what doesn't he know? Or Conroy has a secret. Secret's a great hook line. A secret, anything. But keep in mind that last bit is the part right before you click read more. So if everything above the fold is just a laundry list of facts, they may not click read more. So
and real quick, what are the 4 magic words that you want to include in a blurb?
Well, Copy Blogger did an article a while back, and they said there are five really powerful words, but really only 4 of them apply to most people. And those are free, instantly, because, you, and now. I always try to work you and because towards the end. So my structure is such that I have the description, and my call to action is you'll love this urban fantasy series, because the werewolves are adorable or something, period. Yeah. And then get it now. And I want to stress on the call to action. That get it now is enough. You don't need to say, scroll up and right click to begin this wonderful epic fantasy series, because it's insulting. Nobody that reads needs to be instructed on how to buy a book on Amazon. And the point of that get it now is just a signpost. It's just to say, hey, you're already convinced you want the book. There's nothing more. Time to go do it.
Yep. There you go. I just wanted to insert that. Now we've got another, and this is a hook part of the blurb.
Okay. Take a life, become a reaper. Okay. What is that? I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of intrigue there. If you take a life, ... you just might become the reaper, period. The difference is you told me what happens. Whereas I hinted that it's possible you might become the reaper. Now it begs the question, what are the circumstances? It may well be that in the book you've written, if you take a life, you 100% become a reaper. But we don't need to include that spoiler. We're trying to hint at what might happen. Don't tell the reader what will happen. Blurb. Will an office no dating? Oh, you know what? There's too many words. I won't even read it. I will read it now, but that's the point. If this were a description, I wouldn't have read it. Will an office no dating policy stand in the way of love? Okay. Now that's an okay hook, but I don't know that I would have that on the first line. Let's see what else you have. Since her breakup with her cheating ex, Sandra Weber, why do we have her last name? That's an extra word. Do we need to know her last name? That's something I often point out. Sandra Weber has been just going through the motions as sales manager at Stud Letter Condom Company. But when Michael Thomas is hired this is a synopsis. This is not a hook. We want Sandra's job is nothing if not tedious. ... Life at the condom company isn't all fun and games. Period.
When looking for love,
will an office no dating policy stand in the way? ? And they're on 3 separate lines, and they have blank lines in between them. I'm just doing this off the cuff. I'm obviously quite a bit better at it when given some time, but
sure. No, that's first impressions are critical. And one of the things I've seen in my study of blurbs is romance blurbs they don't necessarily have to have a hook. They have that paragraph because the readership wants to get emotionally invested right before they click buy. And I've seen that where it's not a hook and I'm like,
I know I've seen that too. And I write a lot of romance descriptions and I don't do that. I don't want more than 13 to 15 words before that read more. And when my clients come back to me and their conversions have grown, I had a gentleman, and admittedly this wasn't romance, but I had a gentleman just 2 weeks ago who I explained to him how you do the analysis because he didn't know. I said, we're going to look at a month before you make the change. You're going to throw out the day that the change happens because it'll be in the middle of the day. And then we're going to take 30 days after the change and you're going to look at sales and you're going to look at page reads. He said, great, I can do that. And on the 31st day, he sent me a message. He said, in the month before, I had 99 new readers. And he said, that's both sales and KU. In the month after, I had 300. And I don't remember the exact click count as far as his ads, but it was within 2 or 3%. So for all intents and purposes, he had the same number of clicks before, he had the same number of clicks after, which I estimated without seeing his data that his description probably converted at 1 in 30. And sure enough, it then converted at 1 in 10. It went from 100 to 300, which is what I would expect. And of course, he was thrilled. And so I've written a lot of romance descriptions. Are there authors out there who make 7 figures? I have a very good friend who does, and she just doesn't care.
Well, her name sells. It's not the blurb that sells the book. It's her name. And they want to, it's different when you have that real estate and your name is there. This is one thing I played around with pen names. I'm not doing that bullshit anymore. My name, because I built my brand on that. And I think my name will sell. So, but I want the hook. I want new readers, always looking for new readers. So we have another blurb, lots of blurbs to go.
A slave girl with forbidden power, a charismatic rebel. The revolution of magic is about to begin. Okay, that's 3 facts. You're just giving spoilers. She was a slave girl, ... when she noticed the change. What does this new power mean? How can she control her new power? ? Something like that. There, we've given very little information. Now we can talk about the charismatic rebel later on, but just ticking off the plot points isn't as good a hook as a slight hint at what might come. And
an action verb, something yes, actiony.
Absolutely. Yeah. I often tell people when I'm writing these descriptions, I will say, give me 5 adjectives for your protagonist and give me 5 adjectives for the supporting person. And when it's romance authors, I say, and you can leave out that he's hot and sexy, because I've never heard of she loved him dearly. His dad bod drove her nuts. That just isn't a thing. And so if it's an adjective that is assumed for your genre, you don't include it. Try to find something that makes the character unique when you're describing them.
Well, the cover also, giving a physical description when the character's on the cover, you don't need to do it.
Oh, that's a fantastic point. He thought he was saving the world. Instead, he destroyed it. Meet the man who created the apocalypse. Okay, now, see, I really love the line, meet the man who created the apocalypse. But it's not, it's better than what you have before it. It's in the middle of this stuff. Ryder Shaw, again, the last name is an extra word, didn't know what he was getting himself into. He betrayed his best friend and tried to end the plight of humanity by bringing. And this is a case where the blurb, it looks like, well, that may be this software that we're using. I don't know how much they pasted into it, but I don't know if there's a limit on how much they can post.
There is a limit to what can
so
show.
I'm not going to ding point for the lack of ending, but let me see. Rash, I didn't know what he's getting himself into. He betrayed his best friend and tried to end the plight of humanity. He knew it might be a betrayal, ... But he didn't have any choice. Did he just doom humanity? ? Something along that line. Again, one thing I want to point out that I spend some descriptions that I write. Mm-hmm. I think the shortest one where from the moment I was done doing the prep work, which is reading the original description, going to the reviews, reading the top reviews, looking at the word cloud and all those things. From the moment that I was done with all of that and had it set in my mind, the quickest one I've ever written was 8 minutes. I had the hook and everything flew. Sometimes they take 2 hours. Sometimes they take back and forth.
The thing we're doing here is giving people a third-party professional insight into why their blurb might not be converting. And this is as important as a couple tips like Writer Shaw, just take writer. Sure. Here's that, move that second sentence. Here's a good hook because it leaves you wondering, and just give them that analysis. You don't need to rewrite the blurb, even though if something comes to you.
Yeah. But I guess my point is that a blurb can take me from 8 minutes to 2 hours, and I write 3 to 5 of them a day.
Yeah. It
will take longer for other people. But the thing about the opening hook is that I spend 70 to 80% of the time, whether it's 8 minutes or 2 hours, on those first 13 to 15 words. So the amount of time that I spend getting that hook right is massive relative to the rest of the description. Once I get the hook, then I bring in the character, I give a little bit more, I link up paragraphs with hooks in between them to keep the reader moving. But the time that I invest is on the hook. And so let's see what we have next. Imagine a world without power, stranded on a planet that doesn't exist. Something bizarre is happening to her, and the fate of the universe is on her shoulders. Okay, I mean, that's not bad. I mean, there's a lot of intrigue in there. Imagine a world without power. Imagine a world without power, ... and you're stranded on it. It was a world without power, ... Bob was stranded, or not Bob. Something bizarre is happening here. Sarah was stranded. Period. And then new line, that's 2 lines. And the third line is the fate of the universe on her shoulders, ? The thing about a question mark, and I didn't used to do this. If you read Mastering Amazon Descriptions, a lot of my third lines weren't questions. And I almost always use questions now because it converts slightly better. And the ones that I am writing now are much closer to 1 in 8 than the ones I was writing a year and a half ago that I put in the book. So I continue to improve. So if you get excited about this and start learning copywriting and you make that first improvement, in 6 months, if you continue to study the art, you'll be better and you'll want to attack it. So this one, you've got all the elements for a good hook in there. Oddly raised, Letty Stapleton has nothing left but one friend and her beloved horse. Okay, here's the thing that jumps out in that first line. Oddly raised. I stumble right at that. I don't know what it means. There's times where you can be vague, and that's a good thing. That's a hook. It begs the question, what does oddly raised mean? In this instance, it's the first thing, and I read oddly raised, and I have to stop and think, did I misread that? No, oddly raised. Okay. Letty has nothing left but one friend and her beloved horse. And her father has sold the horse. Oh. Letty is determined to talk the stranger out of taking her horse away until she meets the fierce baronet face to face. So this is a little bit of a synopsis. I think there's Letty loves two things. ... Her best friend and her horse. Why would her father sell the horse? ? That I think is stronger, instead of just sort of laying out this is what happens and this happens and then this happens, because now until she meets the Baron face to face, that's a good hook. But that might be a hook for later on in the description.
Right when before the buy it now and find out. Yeah,
exactly. That might be the last thing before the you'll love, because everything changes when she meets the Baron face to face. You'll love this, young adult. I don't know what the genre is, but whatever the genre is, because, and it doesn't matter what comes after the because. I can talk for 10 minutes about that, but it's the because, and then something reasonable, and get it now. And so there's a lot of good in this little bit here. It's just not used correctly. And I find that with almost every client. In 80 to 90% of the descriptions I write, there are brilliant hooks buried in the middle of big fat paragraphs. And so I will take those out. Or I've mentioned this a couple times, when you read the reviews, if you see 3 people that gave it 5-star reviews, and I loved the robot sidekick, okay, you have to put in a hook about the robot sidekick, because if you get the right hooks, then you'll get the right readers. That leads to better reviews, a better average, helps overall. And so if your readers are telling you this is something about the book that they love, try to build a hook off of that, because the next reader, if it's something about guinea pigs, we all know I love guinea pigs, I'm going to read that description if there's a guinea pig hook, because that's something that I like. And all the people who love guinea pigs are going to read it because of the guinea pig hook. And we're all going to give it 5 stars because we're weirdos.
It's a book about guinea pigs. Next blurb.
A matchmaking baker for the living and the dead. Oh, okay. That's pretty intriguing. A matchmaking baker for the living and the dead. He was a matchmaker. I love that. Well, we'll work with that.
Just leave it as it is.
Yeah. A matchmaking baker for the living and dead. Small town baker. Now there's some echoing there. You used the word baker twice. Small town baker. Joni Sandoval has never been wrong when it comes to love. Her perfect matchmaking record is only one reason why rumors swirl through Heartwood Hollow about her being a witch. Okay. I mean,
you lose it.
Yeah, you kind of lose it there. Couple things this reminds me of that I want to mention. If you're writing about a place, often in science fiction, it could be another world, epic fantasy, it can be a fictitious world. If you've got names that are unfamiliar to us because you made up the language, you might mention Guthniak once, but don't do Guthniak Alec Nicknock. Certainly go with the one name there, but then the rest of the time try to use pronouns. So anytime you're using a word where it's like an Icelandic name or something where it's just most of your readers aren't going to know how to pronounce it, if it's a word that makes them stop in their tracks to try to figure it out, it's working against you. And so I had to stop at Sunval. Joni Sunval. Really, I struggled with that. So Joni lives in a small town, ... and loves her job. She's a matchmaker for both the living and dead, or something like that. And so, again, there's intriguing stuff in there. It just needs to be worked around a little bit. Who's next? His enemies are legion, his allies are few, and his only true friend is his robot dog. Okay, I mean that's okay. It's, if it were on 3, his enemies are legion, his allies are few. Can he survive with only one friend? ? And then maybe talk about the robot dog. his only true friend is his robot dog. This is interesting. It certainly could be much worse, but it's a list of facts. It isn't, there's nothing. It feels like I already know what the story is. So I'm not sure I want to learn more, though robot dog is intriguing. When you're down on your luck and the chips are stacked against you, is a robot dog going to be enough to save the day? Question mark. Something like that, where I loved robot dog. I think robot dog has to be in there, because who doesn't love dogs and robots? To survive a world where summer and winter kill, Ani and her people must walk or die. Ani and her people have two choices: walk or die. Will they make it to safety by the end of the season? Question mark. Any of her people, ... or any of your people have two choices, ... walk or die. Okay, that's good there. And then will they make it out of the barren lands in time or something? I don't know the situation in the world, but whatever that situation is, you put a time element, and time is always a good hook, because the clock is ticking. Question, Brian, what are your thoughts about using comps above the fold? When I see comps, I'm thinking Las Vegas and getting a free room. Are you referring to social proof? I've seen several of the top authors in my genre, YA epic fantasy, doing this, but I was curious if it's good use of the space. I would say A, using quotes, if they're coming from the reviews that you have of your book, is against terms of service. I used to do it. And when I first started out, when I got down to 1 in 12, I think it was because I did that. I don't believe in breaking TOS, so I don't recommend that. In February, I redid the description for L. Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth. And at the end of it, it had four blurbs from famous people. Neil Gaiman, Kevin J. Anderson, Brandon Sanderson, and I forget who the fourth one was. In the redid version, I had them only use 2. Now, they then threw on this giant, 10-line block of text at the bottom that was explaining something inane about, this is a redone copy, 25 years old, where we include a bunch of stuff you're not interested in, for this long, which drove me a little nuts. But the point is, I don't think you should use social proof unless the person is a household name. You know what? Neil Gaiman's a household name. If Neil Gaiman writes you a blurb, use it. If you win a Pulitzer Prize, use it. If you won a gold medal in an obscure online writing contest, it doesn't carry a lot of weight. So don't use the words, because it's wasted on most people. Blurb.
Well, and on that question, Brian, some of my books above the fold, I've used over 2,200 pages in one volume and things like that. In addition to the hook, setting the hook, and then adding that in to reel them in, as it may be. That's a good idea. And another bit of data that everyone should know: what is the distribution of your readership, if you're exclusive, that buy your book versus read it in Kindle Unlimited? Because if you find out that it's 20% buy it, 80% Kindle Unlimited, or 50-50, you might do things a different way. The box sets, which are very, very large, people don't understand that if you do a Venn diagram, box sets don't necessarily kill your individual sales, because there are people that only read box sets. They're not interested in reading a series till it's done, because they consume 5 novels a week. And so in a case where you have a box set with 2,200 pages, that might be a good hook. Yeah, and complete in the title.
Absolutely.
Complete.
The other thing that I want to talk about is we've been talking all fiction here, and certainly there are plenty of nonfiction authors. With nonfiction, you've got two components. One, you're solving the problem that they're there for. I'm trying to lose weight. Oh, a book on keto. That's great. I'm feeling depressed. There's a worldwide pandemic. A book on how to feel happy. That's what you want to include. In those instances where somebody is presenting information to solve a problem, one of the components should be about the author, because Bob, who feels really happy, doesn't carry as much weight as Sarah with a PhD from Stanford in clinical psychology and 25 years experience and owns 3 guinea pigs, whatever that is. So with nonfiction, you have to think in terms of going a little differently. It isn't all about the hooks. Or if it's a hook, it might be something relating to the author, and get that in fairly early and get in the facts about what you're trying to change. It's the same way with children's books. If any of our listeners write middle grade, well, middle grade is tricky.
Last blurb.
Oh, okay. Pop quiz. You're stuck at the Phoenix airport in a deadly storm. What do you do? I stop reading the description because I'm not stuck in an airport in a deadly dust storm. It doesn't apply to me. So it's dangerous when you're speaking directly to the reader right out of the gate, because again, they're not in that mindset. They're shopping for a book. They want answers. And you've just said directly, when it's you, what do you do? Well, I can swap out Brian Meeks for that. And I'm not in the Phoenix airport. I stop reading the description. So bring the reader in at the end. That's where you'll love, because you've changed from copywriting to now you're having a conversation with Craig Martelle. You will love this book because I said so. Get it now. But I don't want to talk to Craig Martelle until the end of the description. Facebook, I'm confused. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
On this question on the screen, most professional, I despise that kind of language. Actually, I don't know who posted this, because you're talking to a bunch of professionals right here, and some of the best blurb writers in the business are here, and so most tell you, we're telling you different things to hook the reader and ways to engage the potential buyer. Don't even look at them as a reader. Look at them as a potential buyer. And when we talked to Michelle Spiva, what she said was she goes after people who watch certain TV shows. She goes one step beyond books and looks at entertainment. What are people doing to be entertained? And then she'll advertise her books to them. They may not even be readers. So if you can convert a TV watcher or game player to a reader, we all win. So and you will win, especially because now you're the first author that they're going to follow. So the professionals here will tell you, write a blurb as long as it needs to be that will convert to a sale. And what we're talking about here, especially in this exercise, is just above the fold. And that's part of it, is the highest impact. Because you also lose people. If they have to click read more, you may lose some people. Also, if somebody's on the fence and clicks read more, you want to reel them in, whether that takes 2-3 paragraphs, whatever. And Brian will tell you, don't use paragraphs, because if you have a paragraph, that's a block of text. People get distracted easily. They have buyers have the attention of a 2-year-old. So
Yes.
you want to hook them. And the most
And I want to be
impactful.
clear. In every one of my descriptions, I do have paragraphs, and they're usually 2.25 lines long. I'm very concerned with the thickness of the paragraph, and I will have 2 of them, because you can go the other direction. If you write a description with 15 short lines of hooks, what you have created is one giant block of text. It's spaced out, but it is just as bad as 2 or 3 paragraphs of giant blocks. And when the person says most professionals, they're just talking about people that are copying what everybody does. If you look at every traditionally published book, I have yet to find one, until I rewrote it for L. Ron Hubbard, his publishing company, that wasn't done in that format. So if you look at all of the big five, they don't convert. They're leaving tons of money on the table. It's my dream one day to be chatting with the head of CBS and saying, hey, so how much is that little publishing company of yours costing you? Oh, it's terrible. Millions and millions of dollars. And the next day in the Wall Street Journal, headline, front page, above the fold, Meeks buys Penguin Random House in low 2-figure deal. I plan on offering like $37, and then I'm going to get every employee from custodial to secretarial in a giant room, and all we're going to do is rewrite descriptions because their descriptions are an abomination. The worst ones in the business are on authors that are making massive amounts of money. And when you have friends and you talk to, I mean, I've rewritten a couple of Kevin J. Anderson's descriptions. I've had conversations with Dean Wesley Smith. These are people that have made careers traditionally published, and they are more frustrated about it than, I mean, I'm not frustrated. I just am making an observation. And so this goes back to what we talked about earlier. And this person may not have been on listening to the show when we were talking about.
And also some of the limitations, as Brian noted, we have what you show there, the 3 paragraph, that's a limitation of what I can put on the screen. So also I want to talk the hook, and that generally mirrors what will be above the fold. Okay. I mean, I think a little bit longer will fit because what do you get? 79 characters on that top line in H3. I use H4 actually for that top line. So it's bolded. It's like title, case, and then the rest.
We differ on that. I say don't use that because you're giving up space. The other thing that I try to focus on, and the reason I'm misusing the ellipses is there's more to it than I just want it to be intriguing. I don't use 11 words and then ellipses because my goal is I want them to be able to look at whatever is the middle letter on that line and through their peripheral vision, be able to read the entirety of that first line as if it were a single word. My best description begins, Henry knew one thing, ... Okay, you can read that. Henry knew one thing as if it was one word. So a person coming in 1 nanosecond, they have read Henry knew one thing. Nobody's going to stop reading there. The next line, dames were trouble. Okay, I've established based on the Art Deco cover that it's a detective series. It's not contemporary. Nobody uses the word dames. And then the last line is, would this client be the exception? ? Everybody continues on after that. It's only 13 words above the fold. But that's the point. I'm just trying to get them to click read more. And then I do a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So
yes, we will concede that blurbs are hard to write, but as Brian himself said, practice. It's one of those things. You didn't. You wrote your first book. It wasn't great. In most cases, you rewrote it. You read it again. You rewrote it like 9 times over the course of 10 years because the first effort wasn't great. The latest effort, hey, it's probably better. But you know what would help more? Write the next book. Take those ideas and that what you've learned into the next book. Do the same thing with your blurbs. I have over 100 books. I've written, well, clearly over 100 descriptions, but I haven't because I've written some books. I've had 10, 20 different blurbs, trying to get that right hook, trying to get the one thing. And one of my best hooks, I actually made the subtitle on the complete box set.
Oh, what was that?
A cat and his human minions.
Oh, yes. I have that book. I have it.
Well, you can go to the Martelle.
It's signed by Craig Martelle because I bought it from you in Cedar Rapids.
Martelle, Iowa Library, and they have the whole series. Well, they have the 6 books, not the whole series. I didn't send them books 7, 8, 9. Maybe I'll send those to you, and you can hand them over to the library. Yeah.
Well, actually, though, you can't send them to me because my mail still goes to Las Vegas. I have a post office box, so I'm only here temporarily during the apocalypse.
You going to be in Vegas for 20 Books Vegas, my man?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Because,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I just, the realities are when they shut down the strip, $2,136 a month for rent on a closed Las Vegas strip isn't worth it when I own a house. Now, when the strip is open, this house sits empty and I'm glad to pay the $2,100, but my lease was up and I just said, you know what? I'm going to go write it out in Iowa. And if it takes 2, 3, 4 months, I'll save, $2,000 to $8,000.
Yeah, there you go.
So, because there wasn't anything to do.
All your trash is in storage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All my Las Vegas stuff is in a storage unit there about 0.6 of a mile from where I live. And I will go back. I may not live in the same place, but Las Vegas is a fantastic town. Yeah. Another thing that's great about it, much like Alaska right now, it's sunny all the freaking time. Iowa has been gray and overcast about 80% of the time since I've been back here. And it's wearing on me. Do we have any more questions?
No, there's a lot more questions, but we've been at an hour and 10 minutes. I have to go because I have a fucking book to write, man.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on.
Sure, Brian. Thank you. And tomorrow we have John Truby. It'll be at a different time, talking about anatomy of story and story elements and the new project that he's working on. Maybe he'll divulge it, maybe he won't. So that's we'll see. We'll have to see tomorrow. It's at a different time. It's at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So that would be 1 p.m. Eastern time for everybody, or 9 a.m. my time. And we'll see how it goes. All right, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. It was a good exercise. I hope you got a lot out of it. And peace, fellow humans.
Peace.